also known as NIKKI Vegan, and in today's video I'm going to be doing something a little bit different because I know that now more than ever we're spending so much time at home, like so much time at home, and it can be a little bit tricky to find fun activities to do for entertainment. So in today's video I'm going to be showing you a recipe that doubles as an activity, and it's going to be really easy, really delicious, and actually kid friendly. If you have any kids that might want to watch this video, that you pause this video, because at the end there's going to be a fun quiz, and all of you kids watching, it's going to be really hard, so you're going to want to pay attention really closely so that you get an A+ on the quiz. I'm just kidding. It's going to be a really easy quiz, but do pay attention because I'm going to be sharing all kinds of little tips and tricks to make sure that this recipe comes out perfectly and you're going to love it, and we're going to stay safe in the process. Make sure you get out a pen and paper if you need to, or a pencil and paper. What are the kids drawing with these days? Anyway, let's get started with my first recipe, which is toaster quesadillas. So we're only going to need 2 ingredients for this. The first is a tortilla and the second is some cheese. I like using this vegan cheddar cheese from BioLife. I think it tastes really good and it melts really nice and gets really gooey and delicious. Then I'm just going to take the tortilla and set it down on a clean surface like a cutting board. Just make sure that it's nice and dry. Then I'm going to take exactly 1.5 pieces of cheese because I found that 1.5 pieces is the perfect cheese to flour tortilla ratio, and I think it melts perfectly in the toaster. And then I'm just going to fold in the sides like so, and then fold that in half so it's almost like we have a little envelope. You want to press it closed, but not too hard because you really don't want there to be a lot of cracks, and you also don't want any of the cheese to be visible from the sides. You want to make sure it's all tucked in there so we don't get any cheese in the toaster. Then I'm going to go ahead and put this in the toaster on medium heat and push it down. When it pops up, I like to turn it around and toast it one more time to make sure that the cheese gets nice and melted. And I would recommend having an adult help you with this if you are a kid, because the cheese can get really hot and you don't want to burn your fingers. And that's it. As you can see, the cheese gets nice and melted, and you might want to kind of squeeze it a little bit to evenly distribute the cheese all throughout the tortilla. And you can serve it just like this if you want, or you can put some salsa or guacamole on top. I actually like making this really cool yogurt sauce, and I know yogurt seems like a really weird thing to put on a quesadilla because yogurt is usually a breakfast thing. But for this recipe, all I do is I mix some plain unsweetened vegan yogurt. This is made with almond milk instead of cow's milk, and I'm gonna add that to a bowl along with 2 or 3 drops of Cholula hot sauce and some salt. This isn't very spicy because it's not a lot of hot sauce, but it just adds a nice amount of flavor so that we have a creamy, flavorful sauce to put on top of our tortilla. If you don't want it to have any kick at all, you can just mix in some salsa or some salsa verde. Just make sure it's mild. And then I actually like to put it into a squirt bottle so I can drizzle it on top, because decorating the tortilla is almost as fun as eating it. Another thing you might notice when you make these quesadillas is that if you put 2 in at the same time, they might cook actually totally differently, because toasters, ovens, stoves, they tend to have hot spots, which means that sometimes they don't necessarily cook evenly. I found actually that the right side of my toaster has all of its heat right in the center, whereas the left side makes perfect quesadillas every time because the heat is more evenly distributed. So that's a fun little scientific experiment you can do at home with your toaster. If you make a couple of these quesadillas, you can go ahead and examine them, look at the browning, and that way you can see which side of your toaster is the perfect side for quesadilla making. Another thing you might notice is that the corner of the tortilla might bend a little bit and get a little bit stuck. Don't panic, this is really easy to handle. And definitely don't try to take it out with your fingers or use a fork or a knife to try to get it out, because it's plugged into the wall and that could be a really dangerous situation. So just don't even do anything. The first thing you're going to want to do is call an adult. The second thing you're going to want to make sure that the adult does is to unplug the toaster, because sometimes when you see something stuck to the side of the toaster, your first reaction is just to go for it and to take it out really quickly, but it's plugged into the wall, there's electricity coming through that cord, and that's not safe. So step number 1, call a grown-up. Step number 2, have that grown-up unplug the toaster. And step number 3, use a non-metal utensil to just kind of gently wedge the corner free. I find that that's the only little thing that can make toaster quesadillas a little tricky, is that sometimes they bend a little bit at the very top and they get a little bit stuck. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite topping for a quesadilla is, because I'm very curious. And then we'll move on to the second recipe, which is gonna be a sweet one. It is a Pizookie. And if you're like, what is a Pizookie? I don't actually know. I used to work at a restaurant that served Pizookies, and basically it was a big chocolate chip cookie that was baked in the oven in a little oven-safe frying pan or a little cast iron skillet, and it was so good. They would put ice cream on top, and I figured, we don't have to go to a restaurant to do that. We can definitely do that at home. So I'm gonna show you not only how to make a Pizookie, but also how to veganize store-bought cookie mix so that you can make this semi-homemade vegan Pizookie in no time at all. So I'm going to be using this Blondie bar baking mix from Trader Joe's, but you can use any baking mix that you like, and you can use chocolate chip cookies or blondies, but you just want to make sure that you check the ingredients and make sure that there's no dairy, eggs, butter, anything like that. And a quick way to double check is to check the bold part at the bottom of the ingredients list. It'll say what kind of allergens are in there, so if it has milk or eggs or dairy, it will usually say there, and that's a good way just to double, triple check. And the great thing about using a mix like this is that all of the dry ingredients are already mixed for you, so all we have to do is add it into a bowl. Then we're gonna move on to the wet ingredients, and for this you're gonna need some melted butter. Now, if you are a kid, you're gonna wanna call a grown-up for this because you don't wanna burn yourself, but basically we're just gonna melt it in the microwave until it's a liquid. Then instead of using eggs in these cookies, I'm gonna make vegan cookies by using applesauce instead. Now you might be wondering why applesauce works as an egg replacer in vegan baking, and that's because applesauce is rich in pectin. Pectin is naturally found in apples, and it works as a natural thickener, which is gonna help hold the cookies together so they don't lose their shape. I like to use unsweetened applesauce because the mix already has a bit of sweetener in it. And one thing that's fun to do if you have a brother or a sister or a friend in the kitchen with you is to take turns spooning the applesauce into the actual measuring cup, and maybe one of you can do that and then the other one can put it into the bowl. So you're just gonna go ahead and add the applesauce to the melted butter and then mix this together. Like I said, if you have a friend or family member in the kitchen, maybe one of you can pour it in and the other one can stir, and that way everybody gets a turn. And then we're just gonna mix the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients and stir that all together. And this is the fun part because this is when it starts to smell really good. Now, if you want to customize this and make it taste a little bit different, you can add all kinds of fun things in. This one already had chocolate chips, but you could add your favorite chocolate candies, or you could add some dried cranberries, you could add walnuts, you could add sprinkles. There's so many different things that you can add into the actual batter to change up the flavor and make it even more delicious. Even some cinnamon would be good. Then I'm going to take a little cast iron skillet. I will link the one I'm using down below, and I'm just going to grease it so that the cookie doesn't stick, because instead of making several little cookies, we're making one big cookie. And then again, if you are a kid, you're going to want to have an adult put this into a preheated oven at 350 degrees. And then you're going to bake this until it is set on top. Mine took about 20 minutes. At this point, your kitchen's gonna smell so good, and it's time to enjoy this cookie with a bit of ice cream on top. A cool trick to make sure that you get the perfect scoop of ice cream is to dip your ice cream scoop in hot water, that way it doesn't stick. And I'm using this vegan vanilla ice cream from Nadamu, and I'm gonna do 2 scoops because it's a big cookie. You can also change up the flavors to your taste preferences by adding different kinds of ice cream. You could do a chocolate peanut butter ice cream or a strawberry ice cream, whatever you like. And of course you could add chocolate sauce or vegan whipped cream or sprinkles too. This makes enough for 2 Pizookies, so if you want, you can go ahead and make them both at the same time, or you can do what I did and freeze the rest so that you have cookie dough ready and waiting for you the next time you want to have a Pizookie in a flash. This recipe is such a fun treat, so I hope that you guys will try it, as well as the toaster quesadilla. And earlier I told you there was going to be a quiz, so I hope you were paying attention because it is quiz time. All right, question number 1. Drum roll, please. All right, let's say you're making a toaster quesadilla and the edge of the tortilla gets stuck in the toaster. What is the first thing that you want to do? If you said to call an adult, then you are correct. That's the first thing you want to do if it gets stuck. Make sure you have a grown-up to help you, and then make sure that the grown-up follows the very important step of unplugging the toaster. All right, question number 2. Why did I say that it was really important to make sure that you don't put too much cheese into the tortilla? If you guessed B, because you don't want it to overflow and make a mess in the toaster, that is correct. Now, I love cheese, but too much cheese in these tortillas is going to make a big mess and it's not going to be fun to clean up. So what I recommend is using 1.5 slices and making sure that all of the edges are not broken and they're well sealed so that it all stays inside. It gets nice and melty and gooey. And then when you cut it, you can kind of just easily press all the sides together and it will like distribute the cheese and make it really delicious, and it'll be perfect. Trust me. All right, question number 3. What is in applesauce that makes it a great vegan egg replacer? That's right, it's pectin. Pectin is a natural substance that's found in apples and it helps to thicken things. So people often put that pectin in jam or they use it as an egg replacer when they're baking, and that way they don't have to use any animal products to make delicious cookies at home. I said there were a few different ways that you could change up the flavors in these cookies, and I said all of these except one. Which one would not be a good way to change up these cookies? That's right. I love eating olives, but definitely not in my cookies. All right, and last question, are you subscribed to my YouTube channel? Did you give this video a thumbs up? And did you comment below? If not, go ahead and do that. And thank you guys so much for watching. Remember that even though we're spending a lot more time at home than usual, there's always fun things that we can do. We just need to be a little bit creative and approach it with a really good attitude, and we can make a great day out of any kind of day. I hope this video made you smile. I love you guys all so much, and I will see you in a video very soon. Bye. And there's nothing that is too late for.